Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with GPS, informal conversations with thought leaders in India and abroad. Today, our distinguished guest is Mrs. Nalini Netto, an IAS officer who has had a very successful and brilliant career in the Kerala cadre. She worked in several departments, including collector and heads of departments, and finally became the chief secretary. And afterwards, she also served as the chief principal secretary of the chief minister. Welcome, Nalini. Well, if I read your profile, it looks as though it was a dream journey. You have achieved and accomplished anything that a young person could do. You had very distinguished academic record, very high rank in the IAS, got into the Kerala cadre, and rose steadily in the service, and finally became the chief secretary. You cannot dream anything better as far as a civil servant goes. Are you fully satisfied with your career, or are there glitches that we did not know?
First of all, let me
Go
thank
ahead.
you for all the kind and nice words that you said about my career. But let me tell you that it was not a dream journey would not be a right word. It was a roller coaster ride. So you ask me whether you're satisfied with your career, I will have to look back my life, travel down the memory lane, and tell you how I happened to be in the service. I think that will explain. That will be a good answer for what you asked. I come from an ordinary middle class family. No one told me that you should become this or that. I was brought up affectionately. And no one, my father never told me you become this. My mother never told me you become this. And strangely enough, I may say that IAS is not new to our family. My mother's elder brother, Mr. Venkatramanan, was already in the service when we were a very small, and I was a very small baby. In the same family, my mother's younger brother, Mr. Krishnamurthy, who qualified the IAS with fifth rank in the mid 60s, he was denied the service because he was cut off for the eyesight, and his short sight was a little more than what the UPSC would agree to at that point of time. A qualified electrical engineer he was, they found that he was not suited for the IAS. It may appear very strange these days, but it became a great disillusionment for him. So it was a family which had seen both. So no one told us, please do this, write the IAS or something like that. I could have a vague feeling that my father would have been happy if I went for medicine. Because when I cleared my SSLC exam, I applied for the first group. But he went back to the college and got me another form saying that if you want, you fill up for the second group and go for the interview on that day. But I never changed my mind. He came with me for the interview. The principal then was Mrs. Esther Heligua. She was a Jewish lady. So she asked me, do you want to become a maths professor like your father? I said, no, that is not something which I have decided, but I don't want medicine now. So I don't know why I said I don't want, because there were no doctors in the family also. So there was nothing that prompted us go for medicine. But I did my pre-degree. Then I studied chemistry. I got science talent scholarship, and I wanted to be a scientist. It was so much in me that I really wanted to do research and become a scientist. I studied. I must also say in between that I was very lucky to be born in this part of the country, in Kerala and also in Thiruvananthapuram, because I could go to Cotton Hill Girls High School, which is presently the largest single-sex school in Asia. And if I look,
then the women's college.
yes, and then the women's college, which was just a stone's throw from my house. I could just walk in hardly 1 kilometer. So when I look back at these two institutions, the teachers there were exemplary. The teachers in Cotton Hill Girls High School, I do not know from what background they would be coming. It could not have been very, very great. But they never told any one of us that because you are a girl, you don't have to aspire that much. They always prompted us to do the best. And they always said that you can do everything. They never said that you should get married and sit at home, although that was also the norm in those days.
But both were men's institutions, so there was no question of
Yeah.
Men doing better or women doing better.
Yes, I understood the advantage of single-sex institutions later on in my life. And Women's College was another, which was again a very old institution. And it was established at a time when women's education was just being thought of in the UK, I think, because the first degree to a woman in the UK was awarded by University of London sometime in 1870s or something. And Women's College had already been there as a school before that. It was then upgraded into a college. So we must actually appreciate and admire the the thought process that was there in the rulers of that time, and we were singularly lucky to be part of this space, because as a girl child and as a girl, yeah.
The royalty gave a lot of importance to education, particularly the Regent Maharani. Remember how much she did education.
Absolutely, sir, because that is something which you can.
The missionaries came afterwards.
So I think I feel whatever I am is a product of my parents, my relatives, my teachers, and the environment, the milieu in which I grew up. So after I finished my MSc, as I was doing my MSc, there was so much of peer pressure to get a job. Everybody around me was trying for a job. And in my house, as I told you, although they never told me you become this or become that, financial independence was something which my parents insisted. Because my mother, although was a graduate, never went to work, and she badly wanted to work. That time there was nobody to look after. Childcare systems were not in place, and she came from a large family. So she looked after her two children, me and my brother, and gave up her own career for our sake. And always, even in her late 80s, she used to feel that I could have worked. But then she would find satisfaction that my children are now in good.
So when did the IAS idea come into your mind?
Yeah, when I was in my MSc second year of this, people were writing various exams. So, and people were also applying. So there were girls and boys, and girls were much more interested in getting a job than boys. Actually, the girls around me, we were a few girls and a few boys, but girls were really, they were writing bank exams. So I also applied for the civil service exam in the December of the year that I was doing my final year of my MSc. So I applied for a lot of exams like bank exams, and this was one of them. And my real plus point was I loved my subject, chemistry. And in those days, prelims had two papers. One was chemistry and the other was general studies. So my practical exam got over in May 1980. And in June 1980, I appeared for the civil service prelims. Parallelly, I also applied to Indian Institute of Science for research and the prelims results came, the letter from IIT Chennai came saying that I was selected for research. So when that came, that was the time when I took a call saying that I'll take up this thing as a challenge. But if you ask me whether people around me told me, my parents did not object. My mother's sister, she told me, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. I was very upset with that statement of hers, but I ruminated on it. Then I decided for 1 year, I'll put all my eggs in one basket. Thereafter, I will take a call. So that year, I studied, and chemistry was one of my subjects. It was much easier then. I lived in an era without photocopier, era without internet, without TV, and I never even purchased any books. My father brought books from the library, and whatever I studied, assimilated, and it was there in my brain.
No, we didn't have so much of teach material. I read only the Hindu for my.
Yeah. So yes, sir. I only also read only the Hindu and the translations and all that. I went for coaching class one day to University College, and it was very difficult for me to go because by the time the classes were.
That was not much of a coaching class.
No, it was not. It was
some
not.
Professors used to come and give some lectures and so on.
Exactly, sir.
It was basically for the scheduled caste students, wasn't it? Originally designed like that. And some others were also allowed to join. It had not matured into a regular coaching class.
It had not. But anyway, I went for one day, and when I had to come back home at 8:45 in the night, walking alone in the night. My father was in Maharaja's College at that time, and my mother, and my younger brother sitting at home. Who would go and pick me up? And walking alone in the night those days was not very easy. So I decided I'll sit at home and study. The second optional I took was psychology, because psychology was more of a science, and I could understand it better and write it better also. So all I did was, in those days, it looks like a dream now, because I went to university library, went to the topmost floor, collected the old question papers, copied them down, brought them, checked the books, studied them. So it was a study on my own. It was a self-study. But in the meantime, in the month of September 1980, before the exams of civil service started, I got a job as a lecturer, junior lecturer in All Saints College, Trivandrum.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because at that time, sir, the shift system had come in place. That is, there was a morning shift and an evening shift, and so vacancies had come up. So I took up the job very happily, but I was very scared of saying that I was writing the civil service exam. So I took casual leave for 4 or 5 days of the exam and then managed it. I don't know how I managed it. If I say that now, people may think that I'm saying it just like that, but that was how it was.
No, I'm not surprised because I did exactly that. I took the only casual leave from Marivanis College to take the examination, thinking I'll do a more serious attempt next time. But then I didn't have to do that. So sounds familiar.
So that was it. So I wrote the exam and I was called for the interview. And then I got selected. I think God's grace. So
Told it like that.
yeah, I'll put it. So it is. I got selected, and so I resigned my job as college lecturer and joined.
What is your experience of the interview? Were you impressed by the board, or were you disappointed as I was?
I was disappointed because I was not totally at peace, or they didn't make me very, very comfortable, because maybe for me also it was the first time outside Kerala. I was also quite nervous. So it was not that I had so much of exposure in any of these things. Traveling up till Delhi in those days in the heat also, I traveled by train, and it was like you get information at the last minute, and we try booking a train ticket, and I didn't get a direct train to Delhi also at that time. So it was a train first to Chennai, and from there were two trains, GT Express and the TN Express. I didn't get the ticket by the TN Express, which was a faster and a better train, because the season was very wrong, because April season. So I got a train ticket in the GT, and there was another girl also preparing for going for the same interview, Mani Mekhalai. She got into IFS later.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so
one of the brilliant IFS officers.
Yeah, both of us were in the top berth of that GT Express in the heat, trying to drink whatever little water we could eat. It was really, that was not a dream, sir. It was really a tough grind. So when we went, so
now the candidates are given airfares by the government and accommodated in Kerala House. Those days we were not even allowed to go anywhere near Kerala House.
Very true, sir. It was a very, very tough. It was really a battle. We were battling each inch to reach the top. So the results came, and so I was it.
So you're not tempted to join the foreign service?
I was not, because I wanted to be in India. So I wanted to be in India at that point of time, because I thought that if I not get the civil services, I would go outside India, because education I was teaching, it was very tough. There is no scope for improvement for the teacher. So I was preparing for GRE after I had given my started to prepare. Yeah, after giving the civil service, because I thought that the only way to persist in your subject at that point of time would be to go outside, because teaching in India did not give the teacher any compliments. I do not know whether.
During your career, did you have any problem of gender discrimination or anything of that kind, which we now hear about in the service?
Sir, this is really not an issue we can debate, because it is very much there. It was there and it is still there. It was, if you read the earlier stories of the people who got into service much earlier, the gender discrimination was even harsher. Like, you could not get married. If you get married, you should resign. Those sort of things have gone off. But then new forms of discrimination came thereafter. So it is a battle, and I'm very sure that a male colleague in my place would have found it easier to reach do whatever I had done, or at least to make the people understand that they had done it. Because for a woman, childcare leave at that time was a distant dream. It was not there. Maternity leave was hardly 3 months. And the type of responsible post that you hold, and the family responsibilities that you get as you traverse various stages in your life, it is very tough for an officer with responsibility, and who is 24/7 bonded to government and responsive to the public.
But when you were in powerful positions within the government after that, were you able to make any contribution to avoid this kind of discrimination or any kind of partiality, gender equality? Did you make a conscious effort to do that for your younger colleagues?
Sir, actually, whenever I gave the younger colleagues opportunity to come and redress or air their grievance at any point, whenever they felt like, and am very, very confident that I did what I could individually and brought little happiness. Sir, so I think whenever I gave opportunity to the younger colleagues to come and meet me and air their grievance or tell me their problems whenever they felt like, I gave them the freedom to walk in whenever they felt like, and whatever little I could do in my position, I have done for them. That has given me immense happiness, and when I find little happiness in the lives of these young girls, I feel very happy about.
No, so the overall situation is generally improving, but still everyone has some experience or the other. That is the truth, it looks.
Yeah,
From what we hear from, lady
Yeah.
officer. In the foreign service, we used to feel that the lady foreign service officers were given a lot of priority. Initially, of course, they had to resign, and that was changed. Then afterwards, in terms of postings, softer postings, of course, Manimekala is the only one who was posted to a country like Libya.
Sir.
Otherwise, women were never posted to such places. But she made such a success of it. From Libya, the whole repatriation of Indians, she did it single-handedly. And she worked with me in New York, and she was better than a man in many ways.
Sir.
So we were quite impressed. Of course, but this is not uniform. Some are shy and some are diffident. While someone like Manimekala was absolutely first class as a woman diplomat.
Sir.
But what is the general impression? Why is it that a lot of things are being written now that the IAS has not done justice to the country? Do you subscribe to that view?
Partly, yes, sir. Because I have also been following these writings, mostly by Deepak Gupta, my batchmate Anil Swaroop. He has also been writing. Subbarao has recently written. Abhay Shukla writes it more often, and he has also written a rejoinder to whatever rejoined type of piece to what Subbarao has written. I also feel that in a growing democracy, the role of bureaucracy keeps getting redefined. But what has happened right now is that the moral fiber of the service, it should not, when I say this, it should not be felt that it's not after me the deluge or something like that, because everybody feels that when I was there it was great and now it is not. It is not so. There's a general fall in standards, because there is probity in public life, responsibility, free and fair.
Incorruptibility.
Yeah,
IAS was considered incorruptible at one stage.
exactly,
Now
sir.
nobody would say that.
Nobody would say that, because there's a lot of politicization and bending, and it is not that political interference is bad or you should not respect a politician, but you should be able to stand up to what is right. And once you lose that spine to stand up to what is right and have the courage of conviction to say that this is the right thing, then you lose your ground. In fact, I remember Mr. Sakriya Matthew, we were probationers, he used to tell us, duty of a civil servant, you have to tell the politician, the minister, these are the options that are available, and you should be free and fair in telling them. These are, some may be administratively feasible, some may be politically feasible, some may be administratively feasible but not politically feasible. So it is an intelligent combination of the administrator and the minister and the politician, which should bring out the best both in law and for society and what the political system wants. But if you succumb to whatever the political system tells you, then you've forgotten what you are trained for. I think that is happening more often now, because uh, when one person succumbs, let me not say man or woman, when one person succumbs, the system is falling by one bit. When two, three more people succumb, they will feel that if X people can succumb, why not the X plus one? So that is how the standards have fallen. And the person who stands.
I have heard Dr. Babu Paul's famous saying that you should always consider yourself more valuable than the job you hold. Because what the politician can do is to just transfer you. They cannot do anything else. So as long as you are not in love with the chair that you are holding, then you have nothing to fear. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, sir, but it is easily said than done. Because when as progress in life, if you look at career, the family grows, the children go to school, wife has a job. So there are so many transfer may not be a punishment, but it is genuinely a punishment in terms of movement from place to place, changing the school of a child, getting a transfer for the wife or the other spouse. So it is putting the person in difficulty at that point of time. So I think
Do they succumb because of that? Do they succumb because of that? Because you want to save your job in Trivandrum and does not want to go to Kannur. Do you just agree with the politician and try and stay on? Is that the tendency?
I I will not say everybody would do that, but that is not only reason as why you attach to a post. So it is not only because you don't want to move out of a particular place.
Yeah.
It is because you attach to a post on account of many grounds. Many things, but I don't want to go into those details right here. But
No.
it is very easy for a person to say that you should not be attached to the chair. The people attached to the chair very fast because people clamor for the chair.
Right.
It is very rarely that people don't. There are many people who clamor after posts, who ask for a post and try to get it. If you ask for a post, as someone said, you will have to serve the dinner given by the politician. You go and ask him, then you have no voice. So you should be in that sort of conviction to show that I'll go where I'm posted. I'm not attached to any particular job. That should come from within. And if all people show that courage of conviction, then the service would be a much better place.
We had a director, IAS officer in Mussoorie called Pilputkar. I don't know whether you ever heard of him. He used to tell us very proudly that in 23 years he had 24 transfers. so he said, no politician liked me, so they threw me around, but I still reached the highest level that I could in the service. The only problem was he had to move around all the time. So such experiences people have. I agree, it's a human tendency to feel comfortable, look after the children. The foreign service is even much worse because you go from one continent to the other, making so many changes every 3 years. So at least in your case, you are in Kerala, maybe you go up to Delhi, but the foreign service changes are much more. But people have managed to make those disadvantages or those as advantages because moving around, new people, new country, new profession, it was quite exciting in the foreign service. So we did not mind the kind of shifting and moving we had to go through. So maybe it was easier for you to be within in a circle within Kerala, and so the problems may not have been as tough. But you say it was difficult to remain in a particular place, right?
For every post that you hold, a stage comes when you have to say that it may not be possible to agree to whatever the politician says. So it is not a permanent attachment or a permanent sort of relationship you hold with the politician. It is you are likely to rub shoulders with him sometime or the other. Disagree with him. So when coexistence becomes very difficult, the transfer becomes inevitable.
No, when you get promoted, for example, but it is irritating when you have done it only for a few months and then suddenly you are asked to go somewhere else. But what is the job that you enjoyed most in your career? Chief Secretary's post?
I was Chief Secretary for a very, very brief period. So I would say the post I enjoyed most was district collector. I was collector of Trivandrum for 3 years, and that was a time when I could really meet a lot of people, redress his grievances, and the type of sweep you have when you are collector. Second post I enjoyed very much was the job of the Chief Electoral Officer, which I held 11 long years. So the election, it was a very exciting sort of assignment. Although many people would feel that it is not giving you enough of publicity or whatever, but it's a sort of job which I enjoy doing.
But did you like publicity? Did you want to be in the newspapers all the time?
Sir, situation was very difficult then because the social media had not become very active. The radio, the TV channels also were very, very less in our earlier days as officers. So publicity was not really the thing with which we did many things. But in today's world, publicity has also become very competitive.
Right.
So with so much social media presence and so many TV channels, so it is difficult for officers because I'm not saying media is bad, but then when that becomes a sort of competition, it definitely eats into your system.
No, but it cannot be avoided anymore.
Yeah.
You cannot be anonymous as a civil service servant is supposed to be. But isn't there something wrong in the system that when you are very young, you are given a responsibility like a collector, where your best talents are required, and then just recede into the secretariat? And probably because we do not have the posts of commissioner, there are states where there are commissioners. Also, they go back to the field at a senior level. So, is that the problem?
Sir, I wouldn't really say it's a problem because this is a general pattern in life. In life, we learn backwards, but we have to live forward. So, as we become senior in the service, we always feel that the type of job that we did at that point of time could have been done better because we learned many things that we did not know at that when we were younger. But even in the secretariat, there is possibility to do because you'll be able to see things in a better perspective. But field posts become less as you become senior. That is a fact.
Right. What do you think of the education system? Now we are on the threshold of an education revolution in Kerala because the government has decided finally to privatize, to have private universities, liberalize education, make it more autonomous institutions. And this is something very new. After the self financing colleges established by Mr. Anthony, there has not been any revolutionary change. And the self financing institutions do not have a very good reputation generally, though some of them are very good. So there has been a resistance to privatization. But now, and I have been trying very hard during my 5 years in the Higher Education Council to have a liberalized system and to have private universities and, if possible, foreign universities to come. Basically, to make sure that Kerala students are able to work, study in Kerala itself. Here, the system is we all run away outside Kerala before we do not have the institutions. So, do you think this privatization and probably arrival of foreign universities, etc., will improve the situation in Kerala?
Education is actually a multidimensional problem. So privatization will be one aspect of uh, changing the thing for better. But that alone will not change because we will have to adapt things to our environment, our situation, and to say that and we have very good teachers as well as not very good ones also. So to say that so many, I also come from a family of teachers. My father was a professor. I also taught for a while. My whole family, my mothers and fathers. So teaching is actually a life of sacrifice. So that sort of teachers also, I think, should be rewarded. They should be treated well. And that is important. While we bring in privatization, actually exposes you to uh, what is
More,
there in the
more competition.
more competition, and you also get exposed that frog in the well syndrome goes. You get exposed to and introduced to things that are systems that are outside the country, and systems that which we can adapt rather than adopt it as it is. Adapt to your environment and your system. That is a very good thing in a way, but it is not the only solution. So,
No, of course, excellence in education is the most important thing. But it is true also that many people who studied in our system have done extremely well outside. If you go to the US, there is no single university there where there is no professor from Kerala who has done so well. And their basic education was in the same system. So possibly at the higher levels, when it comes to research, you wanted to do research. Research is not being given the kind of importance that it should have. Is that do you think is a problem in Kerala?
sir, higher beyond your school education, when you go to college, basically our questions are also not aptitude driven. So when a teacher does not get good students, like a person who goes to study English literature has no aptitude for English literature these days. It is not somebody studies, takes a subject or opts for a subject because that is the only thing that is there. And it is not that person. So career guidance is very, very important, that which we are not doing to the a younger generation in the proper manner that it should be. That I
Yes,
think is
none of us had any career guidance at all. We just heard something, hearsay, and everybody wants to be doctor, engineer. After that, you think about something else. Civil service, a distant dream. So these are all vague things during your time and mine, even my time earlier. And career guidance, etc., people talking about now, because people are surprised when you tell them that after 12, it's not only these three or four, there are 50 or 60 things you can do. I have a list of things that you can do after class 12. And it's an eye opener to most people. I've not even heard about these opportunities. So that may be also a problem. Our mind is set on certain things, and that is what you expect your children to become. And that is not changing yet. But if you have good universities competing with the older universities, like the modernization of banks or modernization of insurance, all this came because of privatization and competition. And that is why I believe that the investment required for educational reform needs to come from outside. The government just cannot afford it. We are supposed to spend at least 9% of your CD on national wealth on education and health. But it is much less than that. And even if you do 9%, you are not going to do much better than what we are doing today. So private capital has to come into education. This has been my point, and I'm so glad that they now accepted it. Okay, changing the subject. How about the law and order situation in Kerala? After the pandemic, has it become worse, you think?
so Kerala situation is reporting and complaints and reporting that is generally higher in a state like Kerala. People go and complain. People get it. I think the reports say that the number has increased.
But is it only that more reports come, or is it really increased? Because some people say, particularly those in the government say, no, this is all because everything is, newspapers bring it out, the social media, and therefore it is played out so much in the society. And therefore you feel that the situation has become worse. Maybe it was the same before, but did not get so much of publicity and trial on television. Those kinds of things make it appear much worse. What do you think is the real situation? Again, voice gone. Audio.
I don't have this whatever I say, but it is a fact that when media comes into place, problems in all these things are free and fair investigation followed by speedy trial and speedy justice. These are very important for controlling crime situation, not only in Kerala but world over. Unfortunately, the system does not ensure these things because courts are also overloaded. A trial takes a long time. Justice becomes a far cry. It comes much, much later. So the deterrent for a crime is basically these are the things that should basically deter other than social responsibility and how the civil society reacts. But punishment is also one way of controlling crime. Unless that system gets streamlined properly, because the numbers are large and large, so the courts take a long time, investigation takes a long time. So by the time justice really reaches, it is too distant for anyone to understand that what I did is not good. The sense of right and wrong is not properly ingrained. That could be one reason.
How about the social factors? Alcohol, poverty,
Yes.
and the Gulf syndrome. Most men are away, and therefore that creates a fracture in the fabric of the society. Are these not problematic in Kerala, especially?
Kerala actually that way is a paradox. Even crimes against women, if you start saying, uh, we have literacy, we have people who are coming out in the local administration and in the panchayat level elections and all that. But at the same time, domestic violence, crimes against women are also there parallelly. So Kerala situation, just as what you said, the Gulf syndrome, leaving many people, female-headed households are also there. So multifarious problems are there in Kerala, but there is a paradox.
And finally, you worked for 2 years as the chief principal secretary to the chief minister. And when he said farewell to you, he said, you are a model IAS officer. How did you get that distinction?
I'm
How was your experience working with the chief minister?
Sir, I worked with the chief minister initially when when I was home secretary. Also parallelly, I was working 2016 to 2017. One is 2016 May to 2017 March. I worked with him. Thereafter, after retirement, I worked with him for about a year and a few months. But maybe when he said role model, that must have been pertaining to my whole career as an officer. That's what I feel.
Yes, that is what he said. He said that you were very objective, you were very straightforward, very frank, and you gave proper advice. Several things he mentioned. But I haven't heard him say so about any other IAS officer. That's why it struck me.
I'm extremely grateful, sir, for the kind words.
Well, it's not my word. It is the chief minister's word. Still there. But why did you leave him? You had the option to continue?
No, sir. Actually, it was a purely personal decision to leave.
Yes. And what is your advice to aspiring civil servants? Would you encourage them to try for the civil service? Is it the IAS that you would recommend, or you think there are other services equally interesting? What would you?
So the civil service basically is one job. I will not say it is the only job. There is a lot of romanticization about the civil service these days.
No, it's not the job, the power to change, which is real. It is not a notional power, because no other service, foreign service has no power. We cannot change anything. We can only create goodwill. That's all. I always tell aspiring civil servants, if you want power, stay in the IAS. But if you want to see the world, join the IFS. So and that power legitimately used can change the social situation, can change the village, it can change the state, etc. So that certainly is a challenging job. You might get much higher salaries in the private sector, but what would you do? You create, you make pain for the rest of your life, or you are making toothpaste, you might get a higher salary. But the ability to change the system of which you are part is something which is very special for the IAS, I think.
Sir, I will slightly disagree with you when you say that IAS alone has the power. I feel that any person doing any job, a good doctor, a good engineer, a good teacher, if you do your job sincerely and according to your conscience, there is satisfaction derived there. It is not that IAS alone has the power. Sometimes the power is a myth. It is not that you can change, because you cannot change beyond the circumstances in which you work. It may be possible for you to do many things, and a little thing also sometimes will be a big thing for people around. But I won't say that is the only job where you can change people's lives. I feel that you can change people's lives in a large number of ways. IAS is just one of them. I'm very, very sure that if I had been a good doctor, I would have done things to my satisfaction there as well. Maybe my exposure would have been in a
Everybody has
different
a
way.
role. What I'm saying is, you represent the power of the state. That's a different. A doctor may do a lot of good, a teacher may do a lot of good. Here, you are acting on behalf of the President of India and under the Constitution. And that makes a difference from other jobs, other professions.
So you are in public eye, you are in public gaze, you are holding a responsible position in government, which is exposed to the public, and the job that you do is known to everybody. That doesn't mean that this is the only job where you can do things better the society and to do things happily and to your satisfaction. It is not. I will not say it is a bad job. It is a good job, but it is not the only job.
Right. So you are overall happy with your career. But what are you doing these days? Are you writing? Are you speaking? Are you teaching? There are several things that a retired IAS officer can do.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to make up for whatever I could not do when I was in the service, because it was a 24/7 job. So there are a lot to read and catch up. I also help people out if they come and ask me for anything. teaching or people who appear for civil service interview, also I do help. If at all they ask me anything, I do help them out. But
In fact,
I'm
there
not
was
very active.
a lot of interest when I announced my tea with you, and the publisher has given an offer for you to write a book. Will you take that up?
I don't know, sir. I'm not so good in writing, so I've not even thought of writing
Maybe
any
everybody
doubtful thoughts.
writes history, service story as it is called. Many of them have done because it is an immense value. Because what you have done, it cannot be duplicated. Every officer has his own story, and if you write that, it will be a contribution to the society. Anyway,
Okay,
I'll
sir.
keep that publisher in touch with you. Okay.
Sure, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much for sparing the time, and I'm so happy that you spent some time with me to talk about various aspects of your life, and it has been a learning experience for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the experience. Thank you.
Thank you.